When it comes to nuclear energy, most people's thoughts are immediately negative. Even though it happened in 1986, we constantly hear about the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown, as well as the now more recent 2012 Fukushima meltdown. Both of these events are always talked about when it comes to arguments about or against nuclear energy. But what if I could tell you that both of these events were completely preventable? In this speech today, I will talk to you about the safety procedures behind nuclear energy, the causes behind both the Fukushima and Chernobyl meltdowns, and finally compare with you some advantages over solar energy. When it comes to the safety behind nuclear energy, there's a lot required. Nuclear energy is considered some of the most complicated energy production systems that we have today. And so whenever a new energy or a nuclear energy reactor is built, it must follow the guidelines of the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency. These guidelines and regulations include constant evaluations, and for example, the constant evaluation of the inner core is required. This helps to detect any major radiation damage or deterioration on the inside, which will help further prevent any meltdowns or any issues being caused. These cores in the first place are built to last even up to 100,000 years. So on top of the evaluations, the lifespan is already there to help prevent disaster. When it comes to actual energy production itself, it is a closed circuit. So as you can see in this picture, the reactor is actually inside of its own container. Any liquid that is trapped inside with the reactor where the radiation occurs is prevented from leaving that system. So any outside liquid that is heated up by this liquid will not be radiated. What happens is through a pipe, the heat is transferred into a separate body of water, which steams and then pushes the turbine to create massive amounts of energy. Even the fuel for nuclear energy is constantly guarded and protected throughout its whole life. In the beginning, when it's mined, to even when it's done being useful to us with its useful lifespan, it is constantly protected. In general, the lifespan of an entire reactor is anywhere from 50 to 70 years, but with constant advancements in nuclear energy, we will continue to expand that lifespan. Now, when it comes to disasters that have happened, Fukushima and Chernobyl, it's easy to assume that both of these disasters are quite common in the nuclear industry, but in fact, it's wrong. The Fukushima plant was actually caused by human error. When it was built, there was a seawall built to protect the inner reactor from any damage from the sea. Well, as we know, the tsunami broke that. What happened was the inner wall protecting it was actually only 9 meters high, and the tsunami ended up being 35 meters above. When it comes to Chernobyl, in the Cold War, Russia was actually trying to cut corners in order to produce more and more nuclear reactors, nuclear energy. These cut corners involved a control rod, and what the control rod does is it maintains and prevents too much neutron activity, which in turn causes a meltdown. Sadly, what they used wasn't to spec. It was actually a carbon-based control rod, and that ended up melting with the nuclear reactor and turning the whole place into what we know as it today. Finally, when it comes to solar energy, there's a lot of disadvantages it has compared to nuclear energy. Starting off with efficiency, it is one of the most efficient and more powerful systems we have when it comes to energy production. And you might think that with the mining and everything, it is less eco-friendly than solar, but in fact, to get the power that a nuclear energy reactor makes out of a solar farm, you would have to make up to 45 acres of solar panels in order to compete. When it comes to running a nuclear reactor itself, the cost is actually much lower per kilowatt hour compared to a solar hour, which rounds out to be about 2 cents per kilowatt hour and 12 cents per kilowatt hour for solar. There's actually a higher death rate in solar energy fields than there is in nuclear energy, accounting for the Fukushima and Chernobyl disasters, funny enough. When it comes to nuclear energy, there's a lot of hesitation with the average person. It's almost always assumed to be dangerous and harmful for the environment. That's not true. The reality is just the opposite. While it can be dangerous, the actual method of nuclear energy production requires so much regulation and safety that it'll prevent any real damage from happening if anything were to go wrong. While more advancement is required to unlock the true potential of nuclear energy, it is clear that nuclear energy is the real winner for our future energy supply.